I want to talk a little bit about this scene that I've illustrated because it's the first time, honestly, that I've drawn in this particular way. This sequence, because I've described it before in my novel Iara's Crossing. So in Iara's Crossing, as I said before, there are some characters that can undergo what I call shape changing. So it's shape shifting is something that's gone on in stories since time immemorial, and it's a process where a character usually undergoes some kind of torturous internal change, thus represented in the external difference. So in Yara's Crossing, there's a character called Flash, and there's a scene in the book where he transforms into a saber-toothed cat. And the way that I describe it in the book, I'm not going to flip to that page because it's taking me forever to find it. But I know at the top of my head the way the scene goes in the book because I wrote the book. I wrote this book, Yara's Crossing, a couple of years ago, self-published it. If you want to check it out, you're welcome to do so. Just scan the QR code that's on the screen right now, get access to the book. Anyway, so in Iara's Crossing, which is the prequel to Iara's Ascendance, the character that's shown here on the screen is Kunyani. He's turning into a dolphin. I'm dropping my book over the floor is what's happening. That's why I'm looking funny on screen. Okay, so in Iara's Crossing, Flash turns into a saber-toothed cat from the bird form that he was in. So in that process, I describe it as almost like a meditative thing where he just kind of closes his eyes, goes within, and in that transformation, it's written as feathers kind of falling away as rainwater hitting stones, and his bones, change and all that stuff. So in Iara's Ascendance, because this is a comic book, I can't like I can't show you like I could go into extreme detail, I guess, and show you like the weight change of the bones and stuff. I'm not gonna do that. That's too much information. I like this scene because it shows again a similar change where he has to undergo kind of this meditative state. Kunani does in order to change into his dolphin form. So shape changing is something that some dinosaur characters in my novel Eos Crossing and the Artist Ascendants can do. Not all of them has the power to do this. And this power is imbued by the Ammonite. How that happens is going to be explored in Iara's Ascendance in more detail. It's hinted at in Iara's Crossing, but it's not really explained too much, so the magic system is going to be explained in more detail in Iara's Ascendance. So if you are a fan of illustrations like this versus a description of what's happening, then you will like my comic book. That's going to be finished and coming out hopefully by 2027, the first issue. So this is much later in the issue. This is actually from the script for Iara's Ascendance for issue 1. This is much later on. There's a couple of pivotal scenes here that I'm illustrating, and I may or may not use this same illustration set in the comic book. I may change this up just slightly, and so know that this is all conceptual right now. Like none of this is finalized. This is all as I'm describing things in my script. This is how I'm interpreting that in illustration that I've drawn. So this first couple of scenes in the sequence, we see Kunyani on a driftwood log. In my story, Yara's Ascendance, my dinosaurs surf by way of, gripping onto a driftwood log that's been hollowed out, and then they use that to kind of balance against the wave. So it's almost like primitive surfing, I guess. So that's what he's doing in this scene, and he's looking back at other characters, and then he's taking a deep breath in, again undergoing kind of like that meditative state before he shape changes. And so this process of shape changing is something again that I described in Yara's Crossing, but it's never something that I did illustrate it somewhat in past concepts that I have not shown anywhere really. So I have kind of illustrated this before, but not with this particular character. So Kanyani here is, and it's a bit like a combination of like the Magical Girl change I thought of, like Sailor Moon, or it's also a little bit like, um, well, I mean, obviously like the werewolf change, right? That human to werewolf kind of change almost. But that's a traditional shape shifting situation. But in terms of this, it's almost like I said, maybe almost like a combination of like I think of like magical girl sequence changing or possibly animorphs comes to mind too with this kind of thing. So, it also, if you're a fan of Animorphs, I think you're gonna like my comics. So, if you like those kinds of things, if you like, werewolves and dinosaurs, and if you combine these things together and got dolphins thrown in there somehow, I think you'll like my story. It's kind of weird. It's kind of different. I hope you like it. And yeah, so there is a magical transformation that he undergoes here. Um, so he goes from pretty boy dinosaur to to I guess the world's sexiest mammal. I don't know. So he turns into this dolphin, and obviously he's a grumpy boy. So this dinosaur he turns into a dolphin because that's the power that's imbued here in the ammonite that he wears. And there's an elemental aspect to this too that will kick in later on in the story. And so he's able to do this pretty quickly versus other characters. And then he harnesses certain emotions when he shape changes too. That also is in Yara's Crossing as well. Um, so the characters in Yara's Crossing also undergo shape changing, but into different animals. So they turn into saber-toothed cats in Yara's Crossing, and in this story, the shape changing aspect changes. There's a sea change. Uh, that goes on here. So both internal and external here. So Kunyani turns into a dolphin here, and I really like this illustration. I hope you do too. It was a lot of fun to make that here on stream and share this with you. Just a little bit of my thought process, a little bit of this creative process. I hope that you're enjoying it, and if you do like what I share with you here on stream, please feel free to follow me on social media.